Hello, happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Sisters interview. I am a Shaxi. I'm a member of the Order of the Laurel in Ontier, and this is my sister Sarifkin. She's a Knight, Pelican, and Lion of Ontier. And today our guest is Maestra Alessandra, Order of the Pelican from the Principality of Thierry in Ontier. Welcome. Hello.
Thanks for having me.
We're super excited to.
Me too.
So we usually start these interviews out with what is your origin story in the SCA? How did you find the SCA, and what drew you in?
I love that origin story. So I first heard about the SCA in high school, probably around 2003 or 2004.
Oh, you're a baby.
I was yeah. I'm kind of young. I was actively involved in the theater, the local theater in Kamloops, BC, which is Ramsgard, where I'm originally from. And I did a lot of technical theater, stage management, kind of dabbled in lights and sound, that kind of thing. And the technical director, I think he was the technical director, was part of this medieval group, which sounded really, really cool. But can't blame him for this. You probably don't want to share your hobby with a high school girl when you're a grown adult man. Seems a little weird. So I heard about this group. It was really cool. Couldn't really find information on it. And then a couple of years later, after I graduated, I was working in a shop, and a coworker's friend came in and started talking about this group that he was part of and this sword fighting that he did. And I'm pretty sure I probably leaned across the counter and was like, tell me everything right now. So I had dabbled in Olympic style fencing with foil. So I kind of had a little bit of a background with fighting, but this just sounded so much more amazing and really, really interesting. I like history, but being able to fight with a sword was really what drew me in. Three Musketeers all the way.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I got information out of him, found out when the first practice was, showed up, didn't know anybody. He, of course, didn't show up that practice, so I didn't even know the first initial point of contact. And I guess I never really looked back. It was just such an amazing group. The rapier fighting was a huge thing for me. It still is. I absolutely love it. And my first event was December 2007, and that was Ramsgard Buell. And yeah, I've been doing it since.
That's awesome. Do you have somebody that was a mentor for you initially when you first started?
Yeah, when I first started, there was a lady named Jacinta in Ramsgard. And she kind of brought me into the fold and talked to me about kind of all the different aspects. She was primarily in arts and sciences, but she was really good at kind of doing that initial welcoming chatelaine gig, I guess. That wasn't her role in the branch, but she was like, hey, come over here, talk to us. This is what we're doing. This is what they're doing. Who do you want to talk to? And kind of connected me them, and I got to know Mark of the White Hand, Sir Mark of the White Hand in Ramsgard, and I consider him a good friend. So I hung out with him, went to events with him. And then outside of that, it would be my Fechtmeister, or my master for fighting, which is Godfrey, and his wife Desiree. They've both been really good examples and people that I've connected with.
Awesome. Do you want to ask the next question, Misty? Rifkin, sorry. Sorry, my dog is going crazy. Okay. It's okay. Okay. So sorry.
That's okay. I won't be surprised if one point I might have to do that, although Sneezing on the bed right now, so we're good.
But what time, place, persona were you initially attracted to? Your name is Italian.
Yes. So originally, I think I was looking at something Middle Eastern, but brand new off the bat, couldn't have named a time or a place. And then Gia was actually Italian. And so the stuff that she talked about, stuff that she was making was absolutely gorgeous. And I looked into it a little bit. And anything to do with Italian kind of architecture and history, the art, it's just absolutely beautiful to me. So it really drew me in. So I kind of pinpointed on that, Venetian in particular. And then from there, it kind of was like, oh, look at all this fun garb. And now I wear everything.
Did you know how to sew before you went into the SCA?
I knew like tiny little bit. My mother is a tailor, actually. So she has made boat awnings. She has done suits. She made me clothes when I was in high school and growing up, my Halloween costumes. So I picked up a little bit here or there. I can hand sew. I can do some embroidery and stitching. I can darn a sock or whatever that term is. Don't ask me if that's correct. But I can't actually sew a garment because sewing machines and I do not get along. I break them.
Oh.
And how did you get hooked up with Godfrey?
He was the only other prominent in my eyes at the time fighter that used a buckler. And when I first started, that was something that I was really into. I really liked the buckler style. So someone in Ramsgard used a buckler, and then Godfrey was, I think, the primary buckler white scarf at the time in our community in Tier 8. And so I kind of was drawn to him for that. Plus, he's a really fun guy. He's a little bit quiet, but I really like him as an individual as well. So I asked if I could be his student. That worked out well for me, apparently. Here we are.
And how long have you guys been together?
Oh, that's a good question. 7 or 8 years, I want to say. Yeah, it took me a little while to kind of figure it all out and get my footing and understand the structure within the fight community before I really asked. And then I was a student for a little bit over a year, and then I became a cadet because at the time the Masters of Defense hadn't been created yet, so he was still a white scarf.
Okay, so this is gonna sound ignorant, and while I was writing out the questions for tonight, I'm like, I am so ignorant. So now that they're not white scarves anymore and they're masters, does the name of the student change?
Yes.
Okay.
So
what is it?
I'm not sure that there is a singular name across the board. You'll hear a lot of different ones. So typically they tend to lean to either scholar or provost. I think in on tier, they're going more towards provost as a general term. And that's kind of the equivalent of what a squire would be. There's some debate and discussion about it because provost is somebody that could kind of open their own school under a master. So they're not quite a master themselves, but they could teach students and pass on that information. Whereas a scholar is somebody that learns still, is a student. So it's kind of depending on who you ask. But I think, don't quote me, in Ontier, the order is kind of leaning more towards provost. And then just to be different, because Godfrey is German, I go by Fechschuler, which literally means fight student. But that's our specialized kind of name for it. Fechschuler, yeah.
I kind of like that one.
Yeah, and so he's a Fechtmeister. Which means fight master.
That's never going to not make me giggle. That's
I
awesome.
know. My introductions in the round circle for like open field tourney or cadet style tourney is, it usually ends with, that's a lot of fechting.
Oh, that's good. So why is there a need to get rid of the term cadet? Like, educate me, because I don't understand.
I'm not really immersed English. Woo. I'm not really immersed in a lot of the conversations about it, but the way that I kind of look at it is that the Masters of Defense are their own entity. They were not all given Master of Defense. So there are some white scarves that are not masters, and there are some masters that were never white scarves. And so I think that they are trying to make sure that the entities are separate and that it's its own individual order. And while Antir was very good, from what I understand, about treating the Order of the White Scarf with the respect of a peerage, they did want to make sure that it was kind of a clear line of two different groups.
I guess I didn't really think about that, because there's probably still white scarves out there that have cadets that aren't masters.
Yes.
So, okay, I get it now. I didn't make that leap.
Yeah, it's, well, if you're not really right in it, it's not really clear. They don't really put it up anywhere.
That must have been a really confusing transition for everybody involved.
Yeah, I think some people took to it better than others. I guess not better is the right word, but easier than others. It was great that we got a peerage, the rapier community got a peerage. I thought that was amazing. I was still a little heartbroken when they closed the Order of the White Scarf for new entries, because that was something I had wanted and was kind of, it was a long-term goal, but it was there in the back of my mind. And so when that door shut and they're like, you can't have that anymore, it was kind of like, oh, I'm a little crushed. But the fact that a peerage was created from the rapier community is just phenomenal. I was really impressed when it was all going down that we became a full-fledged activity of this society, because the year before they actually made the Masters of Defense, rapier across the board in the society was not actually a full activity.
What does that mean?
It was, I can never pronounce the word properly, but it was called like ancillary or ancillary or something. So it was like a subset activity. So not all the kingdoms had it. So it wasn't, you didn't go everywhere and find rapier like you would in Antir. And so they changed that a little bit prior to creating the order, which was a huge win in my mind. And then I think the next time it went to not a vote, but they put that out there if they wanted it to be created, it came back positive.
That's cool.
So that's kind of your big goal right now in the SCA, yeah?
Yeah.
Study that, that's your passion.
It is. I absolutely love fighting. Took a little bit of time off to do some other stuff, but it's always there. I try to be involved in the community when I can. If I'm not fighting, I'll try to marshal. And if not, then I'm usually like sitting on the sidelines.
Yeah. And you started to do a series of interviews.
I copied Sir Rifkin and you guys with these. It was such an amazing idea. I absolutely loved it. And so I'm doing a series of interviews called Meet the Mods. And it's a little bit shorter. It seems to be about 40 minutes. And I just have a line of questions that I throw at them, and we kind of talk shop for rapier community, which has been a lot of fun.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go and look for those, because because fighting, is fighting, and a lot of the stuff crosses over. And since before we got on, you said that you're sort of a headspace wonk, and I'm kind of a headspace wonk. So I'm gonna go check those out and see what you've been talking about.
It's lots of fun. My first one was Talon from Antir, and he went to Sporta Kings for several years before they offered anything particular for rapier. And he talks about some of the stuff that he learned. And then the next one that I did was a Maestra from Artemisia, and she was definitely into the headspace. And so I definitely geeked out with her. I was kind of like fangirling in my mind. Hopefully it's not really obvious in the video, but I'm like, I'm going to ask you all the questions. Now you'll never get rid of me.
That's good. Now everybody knows the answers to all the questions.
Yeah, which is great. And that was part of it, is to kind of get it out there and let other people get to know the masters of the rapier community. I never would have had the opportunity to meet half of the people that I'm going to be talking to.
Me either. It's been super cool to just make the world a little smaller And now I have people I can reach out to, and other people have people they can reach out to, just because we're all more familiar with a face and the name together. So
yeah, which is amazing. Who doesn't like more networking, right?
Yeah.
exactly.
I'm going to be piggybacking on both of you and doing a series of interviews called A Branch of Laurels.
Oh, love it.
So that's going to be out there too soon, which is kind of exciting.
Nice. Yeah, that's a great idea, because you know these people, but even when you talk to them, you get to know more about them. Like Talon, I've known for a number of years, and I learned new things about Talon. So
yeah,
Yeah,
everyone
and
interviewed is like that. We learn new things. It's
exactly
really cool.
I was going to say Sir Joel is going to interview the duchesses too. So there's going to be a whole bunch of interviews going on, and I just think it's amazing. So I think what you're doing is amazing.
Yeah. Yay! Make the world a little smaller.
Yeah.
So that kind of segues into. Do you want to go?
No, you go ahead.
Segues into your other big thing in the SCA, which is service. Tell me about that. What's your big service passion?
Nope, we lost you.
We lost your sound.
Oh, did we? Is it back?
There you go. There you go.
Okay, glitch. So I love helping people, and that was a very easy thing to get into retinue, because that's what retinue is. You help the crown or the coronet, you help other people. And so it comes really easy to me. It's very natural. And I took to it like a duck to water, jumped in with both feet.
What's the first reign you worked on?
The first reign I worked on was Ulfgar and Renee for the Principality of Thierry. And that was in, oh my goodness, 2009 maybe, around there. And I was a guard, and I had a lot of fun. And they actually got to give me my AOA with the permission from the crown, which was really cool. And I loved it. It was just something that was so interesting because of the people that you got to meet. You got to learn about your cornet and make connections with them, a little bit more buy-in to the society as a whole, when you can kind of feel like you relate to the people that are sitting on the thrones. And the other retinue, so many connections with that. And just, I think it's fun helping other people.
It's also kind of cool to get to travel to a whole bunch of events that maybe you would have never considered before.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because they go around, and when you go up Principality, you see your areas, and then Kingdom, you see even more areas. So on some Kingdom retinues, I've gone to Gulf Wars, traveled to Australia, and lots of fun. I probably wouldn't have ever picked those events on my own. I would have been too intimidated to go by myself, but being part of retinue, you kind of had that in, so you were never really on your own, but you got to experience everything.
You sort of have a built-in social circle to go with.
Yeah.
Call it a buffer.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
How was Gulf Wars? Because this was going to be my first year, and then they canceled it on me.
Oh no, I love Gulf Wars. I've gone twice now, and then gone to New Orleans twice after visiting Gulf Wars. It was a really interesting experience because it's a whole bunch of different kingdoms, and so for fighting, it was interesting because the rule sets were different. So what one kingdom did was say tip cuts, another kingdom didn't do knee walking, versus you weren't allowed to move if your legs were taken. So that was a really interesting experience for the fighting side of it. And then interacting with a whole bunch of different people just on a personal level was a lot of fun. They have a period village. They've got some cabins. They've got RVs. They've got equestrian. There was jousting. That was amazing. They had some hawks the first year, which was really cool to see. Yeah, it was just lots and lots of fun. And I got to know the people on retinue or that were reigning a little bit better, and had a really fun time just sitting around and hanging out.
Cool. Was that Savrik and Dalla's reign?
Yes, that was their first one.
And were you the head of retinue for them?
No, I was the head lady in waiting for their first one, and their second one, I was their deputy head of retinue.
Okay. And what other principality reigns have you worked on?
Oh, I worked on their principality reign when they were prince and princess, and I've probably worked on 6 or 8 principality reigns, and then 10 or so kingdom reigns.
It's a lot of retinue.
Yeah, they kind of all blur together. I'm trying to think of who else I've worked on principality for. That's not off the top of my head coming to me, so
Okay.
don't worry about it.
What's your favorite job on retinue?
Favorite? Oh. Probably right now, being head of retinue or deputy head of retinue, because I get to have my fingers in all the pots and I get to know what's going on and I get to interact with the most people, I think. Next would probably be either head guard or head lady in waiting, because again, you get a lot of that interaction with people. And I like to coordinate. I like to schedule things. I like to be involved and kind of see the whole big picture. So those appeal to my admin geek.
I can relate. I'm a spreadsheet girl.
Love spreadsheets. So I actually did a couple of years as Principality Seneschal as well, which was also kind of the admin geek part of me. And that was a lot of fun, a lot of different experiences, and a lot of hard work.
So did you do any minor offices before that? How did you work up to that?
Yes. So when I first started, I was chatelaine in Ramsgard, which I have discovered is just not my office, which is okay. It's good for some people, but I'm kind of the person that's like, you want to do what? Okay, off you go. Here you go. So it's not quite the way that I look at how a chatelaine should be, because I was just about connecting people. You go over there, you go over there. But it was a really good experience. And it started actually kind of in an interesting way, because the first couple of practices I went to, we kind of seemed like we were separated in the hall. Like the heavy fighters were over there and the rapier fighters were over there and the arts and sciences were over there. And it all stemmed from a question about that. And they're like, well, that's great. Why don't you do something about that? And then from there, I was the branch seneschal for Ramsgard, which was, I think, fun. And then I became the Principality Calendar Deputy, which is the person that coordinates the schedule of events, I guess, and makes sure that all of the paperwork goes up to Kingdom to get posted onto the website. And then I became Deputy Seneschal and then Seneschal. And now I'm Kingdom Polling Deputy.
Is that for like baronial pollings or?
Yes. Yeah. So all the baronial pollings or any branch pollings for change of status for a shire moving to a barony or any closures, that all goes through the polling deputy.
And we have like 5 baronies in polling right now, don't we?
Yes, 5 or 6.
That's a lot.
I think we had 5 at like the same time.
Wow.
Yeah, which doesn't frequently happen that they're all at the same time, but we wanted to make sure, their majesties wanted to make sure that they were done in a schedule with the timeline that they had in mind. And so when we had it all discussed, it just kind of worked out that way.
And so all of that must be on hold now.
Yes. Well, yes and no. The pollings happened, but they happened via email with kind of an absentee polling, we call it, instead of in person, which was all planned. But I think that all of them actually happened like we planned them to happen. We just had to change the method that they did. And the Kingdom Minister and Mistress Eleonora, our Kingdom Seneschal, were absolutely amazing in helping making that all happen.
So Renar wants to know, how will you work changeovers without the availability of court?
So right now, to my understanding, their majesties are holding on any decisions for changeovers until they can schedule that at an event. That was their last information to me. I haven't heard anything different, so that's what I'm going with.
That
So
makes
all you guys are stuck.
Yeah, but it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Like events aren't happening, so there's not as much work to be done, but then the unknown timeline is, on the other hand, is kind of stressful, I would imagine. But to my knowledge, their majesties are waiting to see how long this will take until we can have court in person again.
It's a lot.
It is a lot, yeah.
What other ways are you keeping your SCA rolling during? I mean, that's already a huge full plate. But is there other stuff that you're doing?
No, I think that the interviews are kind of my way to stay connected right now. And then I've got the close-knit group of people, friends that I have here within the local community. And councils are being held online, so I'm participating in those.
Are you over in Seagirt now?
No, I am in Lionsdale.
Okay.
Yeah, I did live on the island, on Vancouver Island, and kind of borderline. So I participated more with Heartwood than I did with Seagirt, but it was kind of right in the middle. So I went to both events.
Were you over there for school or?
I moved over for work.
For work.
Okay. Yeah, so I had a part-time, or not a part-time, I had a temporary position in Langley or in Lionsgate when I first moved there. And then when that came up, a full-time permanent job doing the exact same thing that I had been previously doing opened up over on the island. So moved over to Duncan for just under 2 years and then moved back when the job opened up here.
So how hard was it to continue to train with, I'm gonna mess that up, the Maestra,
The Fechtmeister.
While you were on the island, because I know it's super expensive to get on and off the island.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is expensive. It was a little tough because it was kind of isolated too. It wasn't like I was right beside the ferry to move over, but I traveled a lot, even though I lived on the island. I think I was off 2 or 3 weekends a month in the summer. So I traveled more than I probably should have. And he came over for events on the island. And so we just made sure we kept up communication. And if I had any questions, I pestered him with them. But we saw each other at events. And that was usually when, after the fighting was done, I would say, okay, let's do a couple of passes. Tell me what I need to work on. Give me 10 minutes. What am I doing?
Have you come up with any sort of creative ways to train while there hasn't been practices?
No, I've been lazy.
Okay.
I do a lot of walking, but I haven't really been doing a lot of physical training, but I have been looking at the Headspace, and I'm listening to a new book. So that's very exciting. And the Headspace is really, like we talked about earlier, really a passion of mine, and that gets me a lot farther right now, focusing on that. The physical stuff I definitely need to work on, but I really like to focus on where my head is at.
So let's talk about your passion with Headspace, because it's one of my passions too. Are you looking for like how to relax on tourney day, or how to turn your brain off, or what is it that you're fascinated with about Headspace right now?
It's kind of the whole thing. Everybody operates in a slightly different manner. I get huge adrenaline spikes. And so when I get them, I actually start feeling sick. And so I have to figure out how to physically and mentally regulate myself so those don't affect and impact my fighting. And for a very long time, I had a very hard time getting over any perceived failures. So if I lost a fight, or I made a bad shot, or I screwed something up, which I knew that I already knew, I took it really hard. And so a lot of the Headspace for me has been allowing those to be learning experiences instead of failures, because that's not what they are. They're not a failure. They're just an opportunity to grow and to understand that I am still growing, I am still learning, and moving forward from that, and letting myself be able to win. That was a big one. I always want to have fun. I love rapier fighting, and it needs to be fun. Anything I do or I am invested in needs to bring joy. And so it got to a point where it wasn't as much fun. And I think that was because I was just in this like cycle of beating myself up for all of these things. And it was like, oh no, I know what I'm doing, but I can't execute it. And it all came back to the head.
So do you set victory conditions for yourself?
I do now, yes. So sometimes my victory condition is you're going to put on armor and go out on the field. And if you do that, you win today. And sometimes it's you're going to go do a couple of passes with Godfrey and you're going to kill him a couple of times. You stab him, I don't know, in the chest or take his arm, or don't get one-shotted. That was a victory condition for a very long time. I've grown past that one, thankfully. But yeah, it was like, don't get one-shotted. Don't get hit in the head. And sometimes it's, you know, last time I fought, I found that I stumbled halfway through the tournament. I lost my focus. So this time I'm going to maintain that focus and work through those things, figure out where I stumbled and how to get past it this time.
It's interesting because I feel like people that are really analytical fighters struggle with headspace more because we are so reflective that we dwell on things, and that other people are just able to let go. And it's a power, right? Because being an analytical fighter, you can process a lot and you're really good at pinpointing things you need to work on or whatever. But at the same time, it's this detriment because you obsess.
Yes, you hyper focus on it.
So I can relate to that. And I think it's just this journey about learning how to have goals, but let go of whether you reach the outcome. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for a while, goal was a dirty word for me because it put way too much pressure on myself. And so the victory condition term was fantastic. Or, you know, I had a plan, but didn't really have a goal, because the second I had a goal, I self-sabotaged. Like I just like hyper focused on it. I started fighting really sloppy. I couldn't even remember what I was doing. And it just, it's just a bad thing. So I avoided trying to set goals for a while. And we used different terms, which was beneficial. And that was also part of it, realizing that it's kind of the way you categorize things in your brain, right? I don't have to win to win. It's the same word, but it's not the same thing.
What are your favorite books on Headspace?
Mind Gym by Gary Mack is by far my absolute favorite. That was a huge turning point for me. That was the one that made me realize that I could win and still have fun, that I was allowed to, that it was okay to do that. And it helped me realize some of the stumbling blocks that I had run into, but didn't have the ability to comprehend what they were. So when I read them, they were like light bulbs going off left and right. It was just chapter after chapter of, oh, I do that. Oh, okay, that's how I get around that. And then the visualization. So in that book, they talk about visualization, but they don't talk about visualization in kind of a step-by-step process, which I think is kind of what I did. We talked about being hyper-focused on it, but it was more a visualization of the outcome. So I'm going to end up with a lunge to, you know, so-and-so's face. That's what I aim to do. That's the plan. Not every step of the way in it, but I can envision myself beating my opponent in that manner, which helped me overcome some barriers in thinking I wasn't good enough to kill some people. Not sure if you ever ran into that, but they have kind of property in your head. They own a little chunk of space or a little apartment, and you're like, oh no, I'm not good enough to, you know, kill Godfrey. He's my master. He's too good for that. And then that reading that book was really like, oh no, you know, I'm not there yet, but I can. I have the ability. I can kill him. It will happen.
I wish I could tell you that I don't struggle from that, but that would not be honest. I still, when I beat people that that have been my idols or my mentors or whatever, my first question is always, are you fighting me? Is this real?
Is this happening?
Did I really just thrust you in the face? I guess I did. So yeah, so I can relate to all of that.
And it's actually really cool, I guess, for a lack of a better word, because I've actually started a class on it. So it's not so much a structured, itemized class, but I sit down and I talk about all the problems that I've had and the ways that I've overcome it and the people that have helped me. And I found it's been extremely beneficial for me putting it on paper, but I've had some positive feedback from talking to other people about it as well.
One of the things that I think is interesting that you said that I had struggled with a bit is wanting it to be fun and winning, because it would be where like I would win fights, but I knew that my opponent liked a certain kind of fight, and I knew I wasn't giving them that, like, because I'm a very, well, I don't know if I'm aggressive. I guess I'm an aggressive fighter. And I knew they don't like that. They like a pretty like long range, and I'm like, well, I'm not giving them what they want. They're not having fun. And then I'm like, what the hell, Misty? Because you know, you have fun fighting people that beat you all the time. So yeah. Why are you worried about their fun?
It's hard to overcome that though, because right. I have that. I'm focused. I want it to be a good fight for my opponent.
Right.
And so many people have so much buy-in in winning or in having that, you know, beautiful, clean fight. And I'm like, if I come in and brawl with you, are you gonna not want to fight me anymore? Well, that's not going to be a good time for anybody.
Right. But they will, because they're still enjoying the fight, right? Like it might not be their optimal, like, you know, at range gunfight or whatever they want to do, but it's still, you're giving them a really good fight. So I don't know like what that is, like if that's like an analytical person thing, like, or what, but
I don't know. I have it too.
Yeah.
I think it's a people pleasing thing.
Oh, maybe.
Sorry.
She's like, actually, it's this. Here's what it's called.
She's gonna give me that special finger now.
Yes, 2 of them. No. All right. Can I ask you, what is your favorite version of the Three Musketeers?
Oh, I'm not sure I have one actually. I like aspects of kind of all of them. Every movie that I've watched about the Three Musketeers, I've liked something about. Some of them are not great, but there's always something that's entertaining. And I just like this stories as a whole.
Which one do you think totally fails?
I think the newest one, they had some like airships in it.
Oh,
they made it a little too, yeah, it was a little too modern. I'm like, I was kind of trying to buy in for you guys, and then you brought like the blimp or whatever it was, and
were they trying to steampunk it up?
Yeah, I think that's what, yeah, maybe they're trying to make it steampunk, and I was like, okay, this isn't, you know, this isn't great, but oh no, I'm done. Like the newest Robin Hood, they tried to make that one modern, and that one was bad too.
Did I miss that one too? Was there a new Robin Hood?
Yeah, with I'm horrible with names, so it's
that's okay.
Well, I don't remember.
Okay.
But they made it kind of modern, so even the clothing that they're wearing is like leather and more modern than Robin Hood is ever actually set in. So that was a weird one.
I'm not a big fan of those. Like I was never a big fan of the Romeo and Juliet with Leonardo DiCaprio either. I just didn't really do it for me.
No.
Oh. Okay. So do we want to talk about Pelican stuff?
Sure.
We talked about your service. When you were Pelican, I don't know the What's the term?
That works.
Okay. Did you have a vigil?
I did, yes. So I was offered at May Crown, which was a lot of fun because it was in Salmon Arm, and Ramsgard, I guess, was hosting. So it was kind of like hometown being offered, and all of my family was there, so that was spectacular. And then I really wanted a vigil for that because while I do service and I'm part of the service community, getting people's input, their advice, suggestions on how to move forward in that the other side of the coin, I thought was going to be extremely beneficial, and it was. And then my elevation, I think, was about a month later. So I've been a Pelican for 2 years now.
What was your your favorite vigil advice that you got?
I think I'd have to go with what Duke Saverick says, which is that while your words have weight, so does your silence. He doesn't say it exactly like that, but basically, as a peer, people will look to you to act and to represent. And if you are sitting silent on the sidelines, then sometimes that kind of endorses whatever action is going on in a negative or a positive way.
Yeah, that can speak louder than words.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What's your favorite piece of regalia?
My favorite piece of regalia is my medallion. I'm not sure if you can see it. It's a little hard to see.
Yeah.
It was made by Mistress Gemma, who was wife to my Pelican, Sir Stein. And it belonged to Master Raoul from Abacal. And so it was kind of fun because I went out to Abacal between my offer and my elevation and got to see some of my friends over there in Abacal. And Raoul gives me this box with some creepy ostriches on it and tells me it's for Stein, who is his knight. And he won, I don't know, best death in a tournament or something. And all of his prizes go to his knight as per their agreement. And would I transport this home for him? Like, yep, sure, I can take your creepy box back to Stein and give him this gift. I'm going to see him next month. No problem. And so I carry it back and I take it to the event and I give it to Stein. And he's like, oh yeah, cool, thanks. And then in the elevation, out comes the box. I'm like, you did not just make me carry my medallion from Abacal to you to hand it back to me an hour later, did you? You did. Okay, fantastic. There's a lot of family history in the medallion, which is fantastic.
That is really cool. I didn't realize that you were linked to Stein. He's one of my favorite people.
Mine too.
Yeah, good guy.
Yes, absolutely.
Gemma's awesome too.
And Gemma is off. Well, and what Stein's is Gemma's.
Yes.
I wasn't discounting Gemma.
No.
She can hurt a girl. So. How do you view your role as a peer?
I view it as being somebody to help others. So I've walked the path. I get to offer my experience and my assistance in helping people walk similar paths. I get to represent our community in a different way. I get to be that Pelican for somebody. So one day somebody will interact with me and they will view, whether right or wrong, the whole peerage based off of that interaction. And so it's really humbling and kind of awe-inspiring to be able to represent a group of people. But primarily I'm there to help others join me where I am.
Do you have any students?
I do, yes. I have 2 proteges. They're both fantastic ladies, and I'm very, very happy to call them part of my family.
So I've always struggled with what do I teach as a Pelican. So I've never taken any students as a Pelican. I've been asked. So I'm just kind of wondering, how do you mentor people as a Pelican?
I offer a support structure. I offer a family basis because I don't really view it as just a working relationship. If you are my protege, you are my family. And so you will have all of the ties that I have and all of the people and resources available that I have to offer you. And then I'm really just a support for them. I'm a place that they can go to seek advice. I'm not really hands-on. I will kind of offer input if I see something that may be going right or wrong to help out, but it will only ever be recommendations or suggestions. As a lot of how I viewed Steins in my relationship, he was always there as a support structure. I could talk to him about whatever I was running into. I was Principality Seneschal at the time, so there was some drama and some hard work. There always is. And he was always there and always willing to talk about the situation without even needing to know all of the information. It's how people could react, how I could maybe smooth over some ruffled feathers, or how I could approach situations in multiple different ways. So he had a very good viewpoint just on the way people worked. And I try to do that for the people that I have. Because it was tough when I first started really being involved. I never really, I always said I didn't need a Pelican because I didn't need somebody to tell me what to do. Because I knew what I liked. I knew what I was going to do. I knew how to say no. So I didn't even need somebody to regulate to that extent. And I was on my path. I knew what I was doing and I was having fun doing it. And I wasn't really running into any barriers. And whether I became a Pelican or not, while amazing, was not the end goal. It was just to kind of be there helping people. But when Stein approached me, he put it in a way that made me view it different. And that was that he wasn't there to tell me what to do at all. He was there to be a voice on that council, to support and bring back anything that maybe said that I should know. And it was really just to improve me and to help me. So it wasn't that he would ever tell me what was said at council, but it was like, hey, you know, there's some ruffled feathers. Maybe here's some recommendations on how you could approach this situation in the future in a better manner. So being that voice and that support structure was huge for me. And when he asked me, I was like, yeah, absolutely. I didn't even really need to think about it.
Having a safety net like that, even as a peer, I think it's invaluable.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
And now on the other side, having sat on a couple of councils, I can understand how beneficial that really is to have somebody in your corner to support you and to be there to hear that news, to filter it, to maybe, you know, add to it or to cut off any negative that maybe was misconstrued or fix any confusion. It's a huge help when there are people that have someone to be their voice.
So how has your perception of your peerage changed in the 2 years that you've been a part of that peerage?
I guess they became a little bit more like real people. We all kind of have a little bit of hero worship for whoever or whatever group. And so when I was offered, I was flabbergasted because I was like, I'm not them. I don't do that. Like, I can't sit with those people. And now sitting with them, it's like, oh, okay, some of them still feel that way. And they're just people too. And we're all doing what we love to help everybody else. So kind of a really good experience, actually.
That's awesome.
Have you found that people treat you different at all?
Yes, there's always those people that maybe don't know you. So they look at what you wear in your head or what rank you hold. but on a whole, no, because I'm me and I've always been me. And anybody that I know and interact with knows that. I don't hold whatever I am above anyone ever. Anybody new that comes in, there's that respect aspect to it. I was the exact same way when I joined the SCA. You give respect to the people that you know have achieved and worked really hard. And so that's humbling for me. And so I try to always be worthy of that recognition.
Have any more Pelican questions, Dawn?
Well, there's 2 more on the list.
I know.
What
I can ask it if you want.
Well, you're a Pelican, so what does the Pelican Council do well in your eyes?
I'm still fairly new, so I have a couple of meetings under my belt, but not, you know, a lot of history. But lately, I think we've been really good at trying to have more communication about anyone we're looking at as candidates, and make sure that that communication is from the source and correct. And so we're really big on making sure that we have the right knowledge to move forward, as opposed to just something that maybe somebody has heard something about. We like to go in and get that data and make sure that it's passed along to the rest of the council.
Cool. What do you think the council could do better?
Personally, I think that we unfortunately still kind of fall into being gatekeepers, where we want to see more of somebody, or we want to see more diverse items from somebody, where we forget to look back at maybe what our portfolio looked like. And so I try not to judge anybody on any service item that I've never been involved with, because I can't speak on those points. But we do unfortunately fall into those positions where we do need to talk about them. And so sometimes we get that kind of tunnel vision and we forget that maybe we have no experience with it.
If you could influence one thing within the kingdom, what would it be?
Oh, you know, I'm not sure I would actually pick anything, because I actually have already had the experience of doing something. I was on the committee that wrote the anti-bullying and harassment policy. And so I got to be part of that journey and that committee where we rolled that out to, well, society first for approval, and then it got put out to the kingdom. And so I'm so pleased and honored to have been part of that, that I think there's a lot of other people that are maybe better equipped to influence other things. And so I've kind of, it sounds so silly, I've kind of had my turn and I'm really happy with it. And I'm glad I got to have an impact on improving our society. And if the experience for something ever came up again, I would absolutely take it, because I think we need to improve on a lot of different things still, but there's so many knowledgeable and very excited and passionate people that are working on things.
It's nice to make room for other people. Go ahead, Misty.
No, go ahead.
I said it already.
Oh, I missed it.
I just said it's nice to make room for other people.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Yes. Yeah, that was another really neat piece of advice that I heard. I'm not sure if it was my vigil or somebody else's, but it was essentially, it's time to let other people do the work. And it sounds so hard. It's hard to hear at first, because you want to do all of the things, but it's really making room for other people to excel and grow and have an opportunity.
There's sort of a fine line between sort of chasing your passion and also making room for other people, but not stepping back so far that you can't share your knowledge, right? Like, it's kind of an interesting dance.
Yeah, it's kind of a fine line. I will never stop working. I'll never stop serving, but I can do it in ways that will coach and grow other people as opposed to doing it for my own enjoyment. And so I try to be available to anybody that maybe is following in those roles to give input or things that I've run into, just so they can have a different perspective, whether they take it or not. Knowledge is power. And so handing off knowledge to other people is, I think, always beneficial. And then they get to do with it what they want.
So do you have an art form that you like in the SCA to do?
What do you mean?
Like I know you sew and you do hand sewing, but not machine sewing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I dabble here and there with like heraldry stuff. I like to look at the devices and kind of get into that, but there's not really anything where I put pen to paper and have an output. I like to paint charters here and there, but I tend to use really vibrant colors, so they're not really period. So not as many people enjoy them as I enjoy them. So it's fun to sit and paint them. But I also don't want to be taking a charter to paint and then having it potentially not be handed out because maybe I used lime green and fuchsia.
That's part of my color palette. So
I have a fight doublet that is, it started anyway, lime green and like fuchsia pink with racing stripes because they made me faster. They didn't, but it was fun to have on the pants. So colors that you probably could get with period dyes, but you'd have to work on it. And it really made a couple of people squint their eyeballs at me.
That's good Sunday morning wear.
Yes, here I am.
Nobody will ever miss you on the field, right? I mean, you're the one in lime green and fuchsia.
In fact, my mother is part of the SCA. She joined several years ago, and so she participates with me, and she's a tailor, like I said. So she makes all of my garb because I can't do it. And she made me a new doublet, and it's very period. It's very lovely. It's all linen, but it's dark green. And I wore it the first time, and when I walked off the field, she was like, I couldn't even find you. Like, you made it. And she's like, I know, but it's no, couldn't find you.
I think I met your mother at June Fair when Sabrick and Dalla were down, and I fitted them for their stepping down clothes.
You may have, yes. She did make their German, or she did help. There was a whole crew. It was not just her. There was a whole team. She did help with their German clothing for Coronation. Yeah, she has made them quite a lot of garb as well. They are kind of number one on her list of receiving garb.
That's so cool. Our mom always thought that the SCA was sort of a waste of time in our lives, and that's really awesome that you have a mom that not only supports what you do, but runs alongside and is doing her own thing and is finding her own passion in it. That's
yeah,
awesome.
It's fantastic. Yeah, and
you brought her in.
She works on stuff. I'm proud of her for participating and being there in her own manner and her own entity outside of me. It's really cool.
It's so awesome.
I love her a lot.
Cool.
So you function both in a principality and then also in the kingdom. Are there traditions in Thierry that you love as opposed to traditions in the kingdom that you love? And like, how does that compare? And what, I'm not really sure what I'm trying to say.
There's definitely differences. I'm not sure if there's anything I could pinpoint as a tradition that I love, but operating in a principality versus operating in a kingdom is quite different. I'm not part of the barony. I've had a little bit of experience with it, but I feel like I'm a little bit closer to the cornets or the ruling body within a principality because it's a smaller group. So that connection and that opportunity to meet and work with them is higher. They have always been really good about kind of traveling all over, so they don't focus on one spot. A lot of the people that reign in Tiri, they come from the lower mainland, but that hasn't really impacted them from making sure that they go outside of that and see their whole principality as much as they're able. And the kingdom is, of course, bigger. So if you're not maybe on retinue or you don't know them personally, you have that harder time to connect with them. So I do really like that about a principality. But I've worked with so many kingdom reigns that the overall kind of pomp and circumstance, I guess, is just fantastic to see at a kingdom level. And the buy-in that people have and the reverence for the crown, that's something that I hold near and dear to my heart. I'm a royalist, I always say. So it's really cool to see the whole structure, to be able to step back and see the whole view. So it's kind of give and take, I guess. Is the principality, you're a little bit closer, but the kingdom, you get to see that huge magic, right? When you're at a crown event and everybody's lined up for fighting and there's the king and queen in front of the giant pavilion. It's just one of those moments, you know?
So I know Mark of the White Hand used to fight for you. Does he still fight for you?
No, not anymore. No, he did for a couple of years, but I moved away and I think he took a little bit of a break. And so nobody is fighting for me at the moment.
Okay. I was going to ask you about consorting, but since you're not consorting at the moment.
I love it. I really enjoy it, but I am not currently one.
What do you enjoy the most about it?
I get to help people. Shocking no one. I get to be a support structure for that individual for that day or for that time, right? I prefer being kind of a consort to one person throughout a time period as opposed to being a fill-in, I guess. That not that that's a negative, but if I'm going to do that, I like to make that connection with that individual, learn what they need and learn how I can best support them, because that's what I'm there to do, is to make their day easier while they're out on the field.
It's nice to have a relationship, like, you know, whatever the relationship is, but to have like that thread where you understand each other.
Yeah, you need that connection, I feel, to really be able to have a successful partnership.
When you fight, do you fight for somebody?
I do not, because it needs to be so personal to me. And I focus more on myself and my head right now, that I don't have a physical consort. I am right now, and probably forever from this time period, I fight for my SCA brother, Master Ewan Hoowood, who passed away a couple of years ago. He is a huge inspiration for me and for my fighting and just as a human being in general. And so he's kind of the person that I always have in my mind when I go out on the field right now.
That's interesting.
You wear a token, or is that just he's so in your heart that you don't need a physical token?
He is really in my heart, but at his memorial, a group of people, I believe, a large group of people made some red pom-poms, and he had a thrum hat, which is, it looks almost like red yarn, and it was this big red fuzzy hat that he wore for a long time and was pretty distinctive for him. And so when he passed, people made red pom-poms, and oh, actually, I think I have one. One second. So I have one on my bag. That was kind of exactly what his hat looked like. I have one on my bag, and I actually have one on my cadet scarf, which I wear on my arm. So he is represented there every time I'm on the field.
So she does have a token.
Yes, not from him, but inspired by him.
That's cool. Do you have like tourney goals? Like, do you have like a goal to win the Queen's Rapier Champion?
I would love to. I think that would be fantastic. But First, I want to win Principality Champion. Okay. So last year, I won a big tourney for me. I won Lionsgate's Baronial Champion, which is kind of the biggest one that I've won, and was a really great stepping stone for my headspace and the belief that I can be successful and move forward and win these things, because that was always one of those things that was like, I'm good, but I'm not really good enough. And so winning that kind of got that thought completely out of my head. And so it was kind of always a thing I thought about, to be like, wow, it would be really cool to be Principality Champion. Probably wouldn't happen. And now I'm like, no, I want that. That would be amazing, especially since I think the last female Principality Champion was probably, it's like 8 or something years ago. Yeah, Danya La Serena held Principality Champion for Thierry, and from what I understand, she was an amazing human being. She is no longer with us, but sounded like she was spectacular.
Well, that would be super cool.
Sorry. Is there a disparity in female versus male Masters of Defense like there is in the chivalry?
I'm not sure. We don't have as many. They are, I think they're less than 10% of the entirety of the Masters of Defense, which is, I think, too bad for representation wise, but I'm not on those councils, so I can't speak if people are actually at that level to be elevated or not.
Right.
We don't have as many female fighters in the community as we do men. And so that makes it difficult too, right? It's hard to have a higher percentage of numbers when you don't have a larger pool to choose from.
Right.
That's still higher than the women nights. I think we're at like 2% or something.
Okay. Don't quote me. It might not be 10, might be lower. I'm not sure.
But we have the same problem, right? Like there's just not as many women fighting.
Yeah. We have 2 in on tier.
2
really? That's
female.
Or 2 mods that are women.
Mods, 2, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sorry, yeah, 2 mods.
2 women fighting.
Yeah.
Do you know how many we have overall?
No, I don't have I haven't looked at the numbers in quite a while.
Probably more than 20 though.
Oh yeah, kingdom-wide, yeah, I think so. We must. Yeah. But I was talking to the lady that I'm doing the interviews with, and she's the first female mod in Artemisia since the order was created. So we're not the only ones that have low numbers.
And that she was just done, right?
Yes, yeah, she was elevated in March.
They just had their first female knight as well.
Oh, really?
Last August.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Probably overdue, but that's just me personally.
Well, you know, they have a pretty small population.
Okay.
So I mean, it sounds horrible, you know, that it's taken that long, but you know, Atlantia still doesn't have a female knight. So, but they're the last kingdom.
Oh, okay. And you don't know, right? Like I never know the circumstances involved, so I try not to judge on why that is.
I am just really gung-ho about stuff like that, so I had to ask the question.
No, I get it.
Thank you for answering. I'm
Yeah.
sorry if it put you in a weird spot. Didn't mean to do that.
I'm hoping to be counted among those numbers at one point in my life. I think that would be fantastic.
Well, I hope you get there too.
Me too.
I have faith. So is that kind of the big goal in the SCA that you haven't achieved yet?
I don't really have a big goal. The group is so diverse in the activities that there are to do that there isn't really an end goal for me. Is I'm going to keep doing what I love and participating and enjoying time with my friends and my family. And so while it is amazing, it's not a necessary item for me to be happy and successful in the society. It would be absolutely amazing, but it's not a box to tick.
Right. Because it's not the end of the journey.
Exactly. Yeah. Because there will be more SCA after There's more SCA after I became a Pelican. It just keeps going, and there's so much to do. And then on the other side of it, I would get to learn how to be a teacher in the rapier community even more so. So that's an entire new path.
Do people other than mods take students in the rapier community? I mean, I understand the whole white scarf thing, but like it's sort of frowned upon in the armored community, at least in our kingdom.
Oh, really? Okay. We do, yeah. I think I wouldn't say it's highly encouraged, but you do need to be able to display the ability to teach. And so if you are in an area where there's some predominant fighters, teaching at fight practice may be difficult. And so we do have those connections with having students in the rapier community. They're not, spread all over the place. You don't see them everywhere, but there are definitely people that take students. I have one myself.
And is it a formal relationship?
I guess as formal as having a student can be. I'm not in any position to take a vassal or to have fealty or anything on the rapier field, but I did give her a token, and she does know that she has my support and that she has my family's support as well. So
that's cool. I mean, you can as a Pelican, right? I mean,
yeah,
you can take a student as a Pelican, but teach rapier.
Yes, could do that, but that seems kind of weird in my brain. I kind of keep them divided.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a hard time dividing like my peerages. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like they bleed into each other.
Yeah. And, I'm sure they do, but having only the one.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a Pelican and I'm not a peer on the rapier field. And so I don't like to ever make it seem like I feel I am, because I don't want to be, I don't know.
Presumptive. Presumptive.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's having a student is okay. If she wanted to be a protege, I'd be absolutely happy to take her as one. And I would still teach her rapier fighting, of course, but I don't want to be presumptive. Yeah. So it's kind of like, I'm this over here, this is who I am. It bleeds through, absolutely. But I know that on the field, I am a student and I have that relationship with my mod.
So over like the last 10 years, there's been like immense efforts to grow the SCA. How important do you think that is?
I think it's fairly important. We need to work on retention as well. So I wouldn't be all gung-ho in the growth. I think retention is probably more important to me, because I've seen or heard about so many people leaving because of things I feel we probably could have corrected within our group. So, but they do go hand in hand, growth and retention.
If there was one thing that you could choose as your retention project, what would it be?
Oh, that's a good question. Kind of chatted a little bit years ago about trying to gather input from kind of all over, it was within our principality, right? And how to support those outer groups and make sure that the presence of the society on a whole was kind of known, because they are kind of divided. There's hours and hours between cities in Thierry. So you have the main hub, and then the rest of them are kind of outskirts. So we had talked about how do we make those people in the outlying branches feel more immersed. So it would probably be something along those lines of seeking out those individuals in those groups and finding out how we can make sure that they stay connected or become more connected.
Have there been efforts in the principality to do like online thuas or like events to keep connected during this COVID thing?
They are doing stuff like arts and sciences nights, or there's little projects going on, but there's not actually online events. So kind of like the kingdom is not doing online court or anything, Thierry is not doing that either. So there has been discussion with the groups. There's the local groups are still having their councils and their meetings. And then the principality does have, I can't remember what they call it. They have kind of like a Arts and Sciences Monday. This started before the situation with the COVID-19, but people would put up their projects on the Facebook group of what they were working on, kind of like every Monday. And so you had a little arts and sciences check-in, which was really interesting because you got to see so many different things of what people are working on. And I think they've kind of been building on that in the current situation, but no events.
That's kind of cool. I'd never really thought about doing it all on one night. And then that way, you know, there's going to be things to look at. So that's interesting. I like that.
I love that. I think that one of the problems that the arts community has is SCA arts is something you can come down into your basement lair and work on stuff and never have anybody know what you're doing. It can be really isolating. And I think it's so, if I could give one piece of advice to artists right now, it would be just take some process pictures. You don't even have to really describe what you're doing, but take some process pictures and post them and share them and show, you know, it brings people joy and it gets you out there. And
Absolutely.
I think that this is a great opportunity to get yourself out there with stuff.
Yeah, and this is really the time because so many people are looking for those connections to stay in tune with what's happening. Plus, it's also a lot of fun. I don't do any of them. I'm not into fiber or anything, but seeing what people weave or what they're creating out of wood, it's really interesting to see. It's like, well, that's cool. What else do they do? And then maybe I'll go look at the rest of their pictures and find out the other projects that they're working on.
Kind of the cool way to like see everybody's multi-dimensionality, I guess.
Yeah. And sometimes things are kind of out of left field. You're like, oh, I had no idea so-and-so worked with wood. Wow.
So we're getting close to the end, but I just was thinking here, like the armored community has all of these really cool sort of classes going on through the Known World virtual fight practice page. Do you guys have the same thing going on with rapier, or are your interviews the only thing? No,
there's definitely a page. It's called Virtual Academy of the Rapier, I think. And there have been so many different classes about all sorts of different aspects of rapier. People have done headspace, they've done fighting or practices. There was just one done by Maestra from Thierry about different ways to hold the sword. So there's different techniques and finger placement, stuff like that. And even tonight, they are doing a roundtable discussion with the female mods. So they're kind of having a panel and just chatting about stuff.
And are those posted so that you can watch them later?
Yes, I believe so. I really hope so, because I want to watch the roundtable discussion that they had tonight.
Yeah, I'm sorry we made you miss it.
No, that's okay.
That's a big deal.
But most people have been putting them on so that they can go back and watch the video or read the document later.
That's super cool. Yeah, Atenveld is having some sort of martial collegium in July, and they have a rapier track and an armored track, and I'm totally going to go there.
Awesome. They're doing it all online?
Yeah, online.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, different
information.
classes. Yeah, I'll send you the link because the classes look incredible.
Fantastic.
It's all posted on the Kingdom of Atenveld page.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. My husband is in the backyard right now with his phone and a laptop pointed at his Pel, and he's doing a Pel workout with a bunch of people in Kaid, and this is the second night in a row he's been doing it. So
nice.
People are doing stuff. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is really cool, and it made me think outside the box. Well, really, Rifkin, you did because of your interviews with the Dukes. But now I'm meeting people. I have at least one mod from every single kingdom. And so getting to talk to these people that I never would talk to before is so exciting.
They say similar things. There's always something unique about each person you talk to. And even when they say the same thing, they say it in different ways. It's been really enlightening for me. And I hope you have the same experience, because I'm really digging it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes just that different way of phrasing something can make you connected with it more. Like it just speaks to you, or you finally fully comprehend the point that everybody's been talking about. Maybe you've heard it before, maybe you haven't. Lots to learn from people.
Super
so
exciting.
What's the book that you're currently listening to?
It is called Mastery by George Leonard. And it's a sports psychology book. So I've just gotten started, but so far it's really interesting. It's the path to mastery. And the first couple of chapters are talking about kind of how society is not ideal for getting people on the path to mastery, because there's so many instantaneous things that we can get that it's harder now for people to focus on staying on path and staying on the track to achieving their goals, because it is long and it is hard. But there's also enjoyment out of it. So one point that they've talked about that has really stuck out with me is loving the plateau, learning to love the plateau and appreciate that plateau, because when we fight or when we're doing a craft, there's always that kind of long stretch where we don't feel like we're excelling or we're learning or we're improving, but that learning is actually still going on. So right now they're talking about learning to love that experience and practicing for the practice, not for the achievement at the end, which is kind of speaking to me.
Yeah,
I love that.
me too. And there's always a big gain at the end of a plateau as well. And it's always a really great opportunity to rethink how you're teaching yourself or how you're practicing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's been great so far. So I recommend it.
Instead of being
recommended from Maestra Nicolina from Artemisia to me. So
cool. Well, I'm going to look that one up too, because I love listening. Well, I'm not commuting right now very often, but I love listening to books, audiobooks while I'm commuting. It's my time to listen to the mental books.
Yeah, it's good. This is the first one I've actually listened to because I prefer reading, but it's good. I went for a walk, I plugged in, I listened to it. It was great.
Yeah, I have a copy of the 5 Rings in my car that I listen to whenever I don't have anything else to listen to.
Yeah,
and it
that's
never
a good one to go back to.
Yeah. So, you have anything else you want to ask Dawn? Should we ask her what is in her Netflix queue?
Sure.
What is in my Netflix queue? Queer Eye, love that. Feel good show. I really like Sabrina, and baking shows. Of all of the things, I really like watching baking shows.
I do too.
They're fun. I don't know why. I don't bake, but I like watching people bake.
I like putting on stuff like that because I can sew while I'm listening or while I'm watching it, and I don't really have to watch it. I'm horrible about wanting shows that I don't really have to watch and that I can still understand what's going on.
Yeah, you like to multitask.
I'm a horrible multitasker.
Baking shows are dangerous in my house because then my daughter wants to bake all the things that they're baking on TV, and it's not good. I mean,
they always make us
baker. She's a great baker. She makes things that are really good. But
so make her watch Zumbo's Just Desserts, because he's like a huge Australian pastry chef, and then get her to make those for you.
You know what's cool about Zumbo's is that I didn't even know that kind of stuff existed. Like, there's a whole bunch of desserts they make there that I'm just like, is that a thing?
Like, who knew? Like, I knew cookies existed. I knew there were fancy cookies, but that is beyond a fancy cookie.
Well, and all those mirror glazes with like the 17 layers.
Crazy. Spectacular. Yeah.
Yeah, spectacular. Anyway.
So I know, so entertaining.
I really appreciate you coming and talking with us tonight. Thank you so much for your time. Do you have anything else you want to ask? No,
thank you.
Thank you for having me. Like, completely honored and humbled to get to talk to you guys and be part
Yeah,
of it.
and I'm going to go look up your interviews with the mods, because I just think that's spectacular that you're doing that. And I know how much work goes into it. It's not just the hour that you're talking to them. You got to do all the background. So kudos to you.
It's a
Thank you for
wonderful
the idea.
It's a wonderful peek into a different subculture in the SCA.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to checking them out. Thank you.
Yeah, they're fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us. And I think next week we're going to be talking to His Royal Highness Vic, which should be very interesting. I like to call Vic the Vic Show.
Yep.
So it should be super fun.
Nice.
I'm not going to wear any eye makeup because
A great guy, so that'll be a good interview. I will definitely be watching that one.
Well, thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.